Indie housing market. Get the latest insights right here.
Welcome back to Indie Housing Market. I'm Kyle Morris with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker.
And I'm Shelly Walters with the Shelly Walters Realty Group and FC Tucker.
And Jeff Cloyd with City Walk.
Nice. So we wanted to have you on here because you're involved in running and I don't know, whatever other things like consumed by this project that you have going on, as we were talking about how long like this has been in the works, which I think is just really, really neat for anybody to know. We had a good time talking about it beforehand, and I mean, we could have a 6-hour podcast about this, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
and what started it was because we both got the email. You said, come learn about it. And I'm like, well, what's going on there? Because it's just kind of popped up.
Yeah. So why don't we just start there? Like, why don't you tell us, and for everybody else, what it is? Let's just start there.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle. It's City Walk, and City Walk is a community, really an urban community. It's really going to be a one-of-a-kind place. I'll get into that in a moment. But we have 135 for sale products, meaning that 40 townhomes, 95 condominiums. That's a big bite right there, 95 condominiums.
That's a lot. Yeah.
I will dissect that in a moment.
Are they one level or two?
Well, great question. So we are building these two buildings that literally there is not a building like it in all of the United States.
How'd you come up with that plan, and tell us why?
It is a multi-tiered building. The developer that I've been working with for the last 15 years, when he and I sat down, July of 21, as we talked earlier, he just had a vision for what he wanted there. And we all see these complexes where they're rectangular, right? They're boxes.
And 4 doors. You just walk in, square.
And he didn't want those. He said, I want something luxury and I want something unique. And so virtually each floor that's above the other floor, it has less square feet, and it tiers back.
Okay. Yeah.
All right? Mm-hmm. So you got that effect. And so we have 2 buildings of these City Walk condominiums. One building is 1-level condominiums. The other building is 2-level condominiums.
Very nice.
So it's a different style of living for whatever people want. The 2-level has more square feet than the 1-level. And what's also unique on the tiered effect, there's going to be 14 private patios that you can walk from your kitchen, your living room, right out onto your patio on the 7th level. It'll be incredible.
Wow. How tall are they? How many?
It will actually be the tallest building in Fishers. We got that approved through City Council. We're the first internet bank building in Fishers, and you see that sign, it'll be a little bit taller than that.
Was his design coming from his past of different countries, different states?
Yes.
Because everybody here in the Midwest does the same thing over and over again.
He is from Alexandria, Egypt. Mm-hmm. And look, it's right on the Mediterranean Sea. Just has an incredible mind for construction. Just has built all across the world. And so, his design team is over in Egypt, has given us incredible designs that really it was tough to pass those designs into a community that's very conservative, we might say.
I love it, because if you do travel, if you go across wherever you're going across seas, they're so different from us and our building, and we just stay the same. So I'm excited that they're doing something like that.
Well, I mean, I think it's because we're not as old, first of all.
Yeah.
So they had to just due to, the density of some of these larger cities, you have to get more creative, right? And then when it is the way it's been that long, so people do try to come up with creative things. Carmel is a good example of it. Mayor Brainerd had always talked about how like all of Maine was based off of when he went to Paris. You know what I mean? And like that, and I've been to Paris, and like I didn't think about that till I went there. And I was like, yeah, like it looks very similar. You just do, and so I think that's one of the things that why people do like Carmel, and obviously Fishers has been very progressive with trying to be along those same lines of being like, this is very, very nice city. Obviously, it was voted top city to live in a couple of years ago. And so I just think it's really neat that they're open to and doing some of those things versus, I don't know, you go down to, like, Bloomington's a good example. I love Bloomington. Everything is just a square. It just is, right? It just is. Even the campus
it's a college town,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
The kids don't care. They're just there to have fun.
Party, right? It's fun to party.
Yeah.
So these are coming online when? This first phase?
Yeah, so we have 4 phases. The first 2 phases. First phase will be available this fall, late summer.
Oh, wow.
Those will be townhomes. We're also doing townhomes that'll be available in our courtyard area of City Walk. Those will be available next spring. And then the buildings, the condo buildings themselves, are about an 18-month construction. So it's going to be late 2027 before the first condo building is going to come online. And then the second condo building will be a year after that in 2028. So we've got about another 3.5 years for the completion of City Walk.
But the ones coming on this fall, are you doing pre-sales?
We are doing pre-sales.
And they are able to do their own inside interior design, or you've already...
We can move some walls if it doesn't have any structure.
That's crazy.
Load bearing or anything.
Yeah, load bearing.
Come in and rebuild your house. That's
We
crazy.
offer, what's popular today is the dual rooftop terraces where you got one on the front side, one on the back side. We're putting up a glass around there, a 4-foot glass on the terrace, not just maybe wrought iron that you see in a lot of places. We've got the 2-car garage, 4-bedroom, just a lot of other amenities.
Price point?
Price point, we're going to be very affordable price points. When you look at it on a price per square foot, when I look at a lot of townhomes around the Carmel area, which we've kind of modeled our pricing after, they're in the 5s, maybe a little bit over, $500 per square foot.
Yeah.
Our townhomes are at $295 per square foot. So you get a 3,350 square foot townhome for $988 list price, and you get all those benefits as well.
Do they have some amenities, pool, anything like that?
We are, for the whole City Walk structure, we're putting in 2 or 3 pools. So that'll be
Fun.
one over by the apartment complex, and then there'll be 1 or 2 others for the whole community. Outdoor grills, EV chargers, parking will all be under the buildings, so it'll be on the first floor under the apartments,
Covered.
condos, 2-car garage for the townhomes. A lot of green space. So because we don't have a lot of surface parking, we really are emphasizing a lot of green space, which town council and the mayor really love that idea.
Especially right there. So one of the things I really like is that you're right there on Nickel Plate, and obviously Nickel Plate has seen so much development, and it's very beautiful. I've looked at some condos for clients over here off the Monon, just kind of south of where we are, and like none of the, and I mean we're talking like $600,000-700K, right?
Yeah.
With none of this other stuff,
Right.
like absolutely none of it. I mean, most of them have like a 2-car garage or something like that, but no pool, none of that stuff.
We're going to have 3 clubhouses.
Oh, wow.
And the
Okay.
3 clubhouses will have fitness centers, yoga room, business study rooms, coffee bars, kind of fancy term where you can get vending machine area style.
So this spans
of
how many acres?
This is 7 acres.
Okay.
And so we are just a density type, going vertical, which is great.
Yeah.
You make a lot more building and a lot more units there when you go vertical.
Are you gonna have a down here, was it Proscenium or whatever down here? I got a buddy right down just south of us, right? They have a golf simulator.
Oh, wow.
Now
you're
it's
talking
apartments.
my
It's
language.
apartments. It's apartments. It's not condos, right? But I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
They have like a coffee bar and everything
He
there.
just listed
Yeah.
all these great things. You
Yeah.
go, but does it have it?
Yeah,
golf
dude. Because
simulator?
I'm trying to be like, hey, dude, like it's cool.
So being in sales,
It's not that expensive to put in a golf simulator.
So
According
Maybe
to my
you
wife,
could do
it's too
it
expensive.
and have a little coin thing where they come to your golf simulator over there. They put a coin in, and that's how you could just kind of rent it to everybody.
Shelly, so being in sales, we got to know this, right? So,
What's the consumer
what,
want?
What do you want? And
Yeah,
how much
yeah,
are you
yeah.
willing to pay for that?
Yeah, right. Yeah, another $10 a month.
Yeah.
Maybe
I'm
not me
stuck in
because
my
I could
house
care
for
less.
decades,
so
yeah.
don't make me pay for your golf simulator in my
Well,
house.
what's really cool about City Walk as well, not only the complex itself, but behind City Walk, along the Nickel Plate Trail, there is a 6-acre pond that really has become, the retention ponds for the neighbors.
Yeah.
So City Walk has approached the town council that we want to develop that pond. We'll put a trail all the way around
Oh,
it.
wow.
We want to light it. We want to actually put docks out.
Little
of
paddle
the bottom.
boats?
Well, put docks where people can sit on there.
Oh, okay.
We
okay.
do want to put some paddle boats in there, and we want to raise the trail up because the ponds are on both sides of the trail, and we want to throw 2 80-foot fountains in there as well. So
Oh, I like
that would
this.
be so
We-
cool. But
we-
families could just do that. But you know how we have here in Carmel the rent a bike? You could have a rent a paddle boat.
rent a paddle boat. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that will come towards the end of the City Walk structure because that would be a additional.
Next, that's your 5th
Yeah.
phase.
Yeah, right. 5th phase. But it would just enhance, I think, the citywide living.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. It's just such a long, and even then, I think you said years before this, like just to get here, right? And so I don't think people understand when they see development what that process really takes. I think build process is 18 months. You know what I mean? But it's just interesting. Like, I don't think people know how much legwork goes in before you even get there.
You have a lot of people to improve or impress, because you started 2021. And so I just want to quickly say to any agent out there who's selling properties, when they look at an empty field behind a house and say, I don't know if anything's going to go in there, they're probably 5 years or so out. You can check this. It's out there. So, if it's not, they say, I don't think it's coming next year. No, you will never know. It's going to be 5 years out, something.
The biggest thing is just to have conversations.
Yeah.
That was
just
really,
ask. Yeah.
And how many times have we heard that from a lot of leaders and a lot of business coaches that say, just have the conversations. So if somebody owns a property behind you, just pick up the phone, find out,
Yeah, what are they doing?
what's a conversation? Yeah,
For
what's
us,
your thoughts?
like I live in McCordsville, is a Fisher's neighborhood, and when we built the house, it was trees and a field, and I wasn't in real estate at the time, and they had told us that it was going to stay. But they
No field stays.
No, but they were honest in this sense, right? So like if you would have looked at tax records, you would not have known this, but it actually, so it was still owned by the farmer, but Fisher's had a first right on it, first right of refusal on it. And so like they didn't have the money into it, but they were basically under a purchase agreement for it, right? So it just would never show that on the tax records, right? And so then as they built our neighborhood, they were like, all right, so we'll pay for it now because we have the liquidity to do it. I don't have trees behind me anymore, but
You have to plant them early and then just live there for 10 years, and there you go.
yeah,
Tulip tree grows
I have a
fast.
house behind me now, so
Yeah.
that's what I have. But it's just interesting, like how these things are done, and I just don't know, like if it's more than, somebody asked me this the other day, and I was like, if it's more than 5 acres, there's a very good possibility that it's going to be developed. If it's 7 or more, 100% it's going to be developed.
The first thing to look at is if they change, they being the government, if they change the zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, zoning.
If
To
that zoning
multi-use
gets
or something.
changed, boom, you can start having those
So the
conversations.
process is in gear, right?
And the town council of Fishers changed that zoning for that nickel plate corridor, and this was back in 2020. And then that prompted us, okay, let's now look around and see what's available.
I have a listing, or had a listing, and I looked up before I was putting it on the market because it had a lot of land, but there wasn't anything around it but houses. But I decided to go up and look at the area and see what's the house next to us. Turned out it had 6 acres, but it had a house long-term. Our house sat next to it, and then I looked it up. Well, there's a big, huge neighborhood behind us way back here because there were 6-acre tracts, and they were all from a certain builder. And I just saw that this property right next to him was owned by that builder. Like they bought their first, second, 8 phases, whatever they got. This is their last phase, and it's coming. It was so easy to find out. It's coming.
Well, and to your point, if you just have conversations, so where I live, Carroll Road is County Line Road, and that's the difference between, like, I literally moved from, like, Marion County to Hancock County by moving one street, right? But there's a huge field there. I'm trying to think. There's, like, the McCordsville and a police station and all this stuff. You guys probably don't know this area very well, but I don't know. You live in Fisher, so you might probably know this area. So, like, kind of like, I was trying to think of the neighborhood. I can't think of the neighborhood off the top of my head, but anyways, there's this massive cornfield right there, and I just happen to know some landowners over there, and they got mailers like in the past 2 weeks about all of that being developed by Dries, and it was directly from the farmer who's selling it. They've owned it for like 100 years.
Yeah.
And they were just like, hey, like, this is
Too good to be passed up.
well, he was like, I believe in McCordsville. I've lived here for, like, my family's been here 100 years, and, like, we think this is the best use for McCordsville. And, like, just a very, very heartfelt letter, because I think a lot of people think it's a money grab or anything like this. Like, no, like, they know what's going on, and, like, hey, like, we actually have a little bit of say of who this goes to and what we want done with our community. And there was a whole letter about, obviously, because they're going to have the zoning meeting, and that, like, you're going to get remonstrators and all that stuff. And so it's just kind of preemptive with that. I know when I was involved in something of this nature up in Anderson, we had an open house so people could come and talk before, like, you just get to the zoning meeting, and I'm sure you did plenty of that stuff where you went out and you shake hands and kiss babies and all
Before the
that.
social media starts, where all the people who
Yeah.
know what's going on put it out on social media. How did you get your land? How did you go through that process?
Oh, very good question. So this is a fun story I like to tell. I tell people first the real interesting that I only had 2 guns and 1 sword pulled on me. That was a true story. And so we just started with letters. We did knock on doors, but today you got to be very cautious.
Yeah.
With that knock on doors. If someone tells you to leave, you leave.
Yeah.
And we've got someone that we closed on our first home. And from there, it was really a process that I asked Carol, who was the owner of the first home we purchased, do you know any of your neighbors? And of course, Carol's very proud. Was the resident that lived there her entire life. She goes, I know all my neighbors. I said, Carol, would you do me a favor? What's Carol going to say? I said, could you talk to all your neighbors and tell them what a nice guy I am, right? And what a pleasant transaction this was. And all of a sudden, now the doors became easier to open. Then you got the second, then the third fell, then the fourth. You're always going to have that one person that's going to hold out or that's going to be very firm in their negotiations. And again, you just have the conversations, you get through it, you try to break down those walls. And next thing you know, we owned all the land.
I think part of it is being a good steward and having a vision that people can understand and believe in and kind of support it, because like you're not trying to sell somebody. I mean, I guess you are, but if you can prove that you're not a bad actor, like that you're not a bad player in this, and that you do have good intentions, I think it goes further than any, especially here in the Midwest. Like, it just absolutely matters. We in the Midwest, and that's why I love it, we'll stand pat, like, and not care about money based on principle. But like, if the principle works, then suddenly the money doesn't matter to a certain extent.
I've heard several of the previous homeowners say that. You came in with, you respected us.
Yeah.
You didn't come in with, say, here's $5, give me your house.
Or just try to buy them out, like, hey, here's
No,
a big check, kick rocks.
Every conversation was, Kyle, what do you want?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go from here? What does that look like? Help me to help you to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And then I went to my development team and said, this is what it's going to take.
But I think you get that because you're local, so is your builder. Like, I think if you live here, you know how it works here. You know what I mean? Because to you, it's kind of just like second nature. You're kind of like,
Exactly.
how else would I do it? You know?
Well, and I think the main thing most people think is you just do come to the door, knock on the door, and say, we're taking your land whether you like it or not, and here's $10. But you pay market value. There's no eminent domain. It is a conversation, and they do decide on the property's value with you. You don't strong arm them. And I think a lot of people do see houses as they get torn down and taken away. The feeling is that something happened bad to those people.
Right. I think there's a confusion. You mentioned eminent domain. I just kind of want to make that clarification. Eminent domain is only if there's going to be a public use of that land.
Yeah. It's like infrastructure type
So they
stuff.
could not use eminent domain because this was a private
That word
development.
just comes up all the time.
does.
They got eminent domain.
Yeah. And oddly enough, the most affordable property we purchased was from a person that was in the real estate business. Was a realtor.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I thought it was very interesting that you thought they would maybe hold a little more firm on their pricing. And, the ones that were really firm, they didn't want to move. I get that. But we knew that they had to move. When you owned everything around them and they're the only home to hold out, you don't want a structure going up around you. So, yeah, it was just conversations.
That's always been my thought. Could you have the hold out there and go, okay, we'll just
you
build
see
around
it.
you?
I drive past those houses. Yeah, you see them from time to time, and you're
Doesn't
kind
it
of like,
just really mess with your development, or could you could start and then they go, okay, we're out?
Yeah, it's going to depend on where that was. So
where the proproperty is within
Yeah,
the.
so
if it's
we
in the
had-
middle, you're like, yeah, okay.
in the middle, or if it was up by Lantern Road, yeah, we could probably build around it. But if it was back on the trail, no.
Yeah.
Because that's where those two really
And they know it.
flagship condominium buildings are going to go in. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just all really fascinating, and like, the time that goes into it, and people are talking about building, and it's also interesting because we had Justin on last week, and he was talking about some people who are involved in some large projects that are not as far as you are. Okay, they are in land acquisition, right? And they have backed out of their contracts because of the tariffs, right? And they're like, hey, we don't know what's going to happen with all of this stuff. We don't know how long it's going to last.
Right.
You're already in the process, so you're in a much different boat than a lot of these people are. And so I just don't think people know what these timelines look like. My buddy who does this stuff that we were talking about, their timelines are like 3 years, 5 years, like Kroger's, CVS's, banks, all this stuff.
I would not have your patience. I'd be like, it's not done yet.
Yeah.
Are we there yet?
Yeah.
You have 2 phases you've talked about, though. So what are the rest of the phases of the development?
Yeah, so the first 2 phases of the townhomes that we talked about, the third and the fourth phase are those 2, as I mentioned, flagship condominium buildings. And those will be a tiered down effect, not the box effect, but the tiered down effect. Those are just going to be, I think, people that are going to be coming up the interstate. You're going to be over on Topgolf. You're going to be throughout the city of Fishers. You might even be in Carmel and can see those since they're the tallest buildings.
Can you put a little beacon light on top of it?
I've said so. There's going to be a rooftop section, and then the rest of them are balconies, right? And that rooftop section, I thought we should put city on one and walk on the other, so that the airplanes could.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't know.
Very fun.
Well, it's
That was
interesting.
meant to be a joke.
So your
So-
5th phase, real quick.
So our 5th phase would be the pond.
Okay.
Now, I want
That's
to talk
right.
about the connectivity. This was another piece that the town council really liked, is the connectivity. Obviously, we're right on the trail, and we are creating a pathway from the Nickel Plate Trail over to Holland Park, which is in the center of Sunblast.
Yeah.
So we will have that path go right there by Lantern Road, and there will be a crosswalk from Lantern Road
Is that
into,
Mile or so?
gosh, I would say close to that.
yeah,
but
not very long.
Yeah, probably under
That's
that. But,
awesome.
But the nice thing about it is you could be riding a bike, walking on the Nickel Plate Trail, and really only have to cross one road, and you're in now a park setting.
Very nice.
It's interesting. It's just kind of on par with what Carmel and Fishers are just bleeding into each other, very, very well, quite honestly, considering where they were 7 years ago. We'll call it. You know what I mean?
The river.
right.
That's it.
Yeah,
Don't cross the river. It's ours.
But it's just really neat. And so for the condos that I talked about that were down on Rangeline or whatever, how far in advance are you pre-selling properties? Let's start there with what
Sure.
I'm doing.
Right now, we are pre-selling phase 1. We want to sell out phase 1.
And completion is when?
Completion of phase 1 is this late summer, early fall.
So 9 months out, you're
Right.
pre-selling.
Right.
Okay.
So we've got 16 units of townhomes in phase 1. Pre-selling started about 2 months ago.
Okay.
We've got 2 under contract, and so it as we start going vertical, phones have started to increase. When there was nothing there,
Yeah.
trying to sell air was a little different.
Well,
story.
it is. You don't know. It's like, oh.
And
what
once
if-
we get that
EPCON
first
was like
building
that
done,
too, or where you live at Courtyards. Not
Oh,
that
yeah.
I'm putting
Yeah.
out where you live, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah.
They were selling out of the shopping mall over here by
Yeah.
World Market. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
But then once it started going up, right?
Well, people just don't want to be the first person, but they also want to see. It was really hard for them. They didn't have a model. Do you have a model?
Well, we actually have a model, but the model is a literal downscaled model.
Okay.
I wish we could have had this podcast there. We had it made overseas, had it shipped over
Oh, wow.
here at a fifth of the cost.
How big is it? Is it a dollhouse like
It
size?
is about 8 feet by 8 feet.
Oh, how
and
fun.
it literally is a 3-dimensional. So the you can see the. It'd be great if you stop by the office.
You
Yeah.
have to
See
put that in the clubhouse in a glass box and just show that was your beginning.
It is an amazing.
You
amazing
can't get
model.
rid of that.
And that's really our sales tool. So we tell people, we got these flyers and everything fancy, but when you take them over the model, we got cars going up and down Lantern. We got people walking on the.
You got to
Nickel Plate
save
Trail.
that. Oh my gosh, that's
and
awesome.
then I've got a little tablet, and I can turn the lights on of every individual, so it's kind of fun.
You have
That's
to
cool.
do a video of that.
Well, because people are visual in nature. So those condos, I think when they originally were selling were like $550, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at the first resale of one of them, and it was $750, like a year. It was $700 because people realized what. It's literally off the Monon, right? And so the prices without these amenities. I don't think people can like realize what the resale value is on those. Like, so when I built my house, even in a community, we were one of the first houses in, and so like to build there now versus what I paid is like double, right? And so it's hard. You are taking a risk because it's new, but at the same time, like it's going to cost a lot more at some point. And
Yeah,
it's
your
just
prices will continue to go up.
They
Like
will.
this
They
phase,
will.
that phase. Oh, that worked. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
But I have a question for you because I deal with this a lot with clients. You have don't have an HOA. You're probably totally under you right now as your management company, as you would probably put it
Right.
if somebody else is listening. Short-term rentals. Any rentals?
Great question. These are questions that I have not heard. And so we know that Fannie and Freddie has a guideline that no more than 20% can be rentals in a community to be eligible for Fannie and Freddie. Mayor Fadness has pitched to the city town council that he wants to tighten that to 10% for all
Really, I hadn't heard
subdivisions.
that. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, you hadn't heard that? Well, maybe
Well, that's
for another
telling me
podcast.
that you have at least 10% available in your
So
new community.
that's where we're targeting. Since we have 134 for sale, we're telling people no more than 13 can be for rental.
of the 4 phases.
Of the 4 phases, correct. And so we have a waiting list right now for investors that I said, well, first come, first serve. You sign here on the purchase agreement, you'll be number one.
So the thing I'm running into, what I'm saying is, and I think people in that location, it would be a great possibility that somebody's going to ask that question, because the HOA documents state, yes, you can have rentals, but there's no omission of what kind in the HOA documents. And
Some
so,
of them do, some of them don't.
Yeah, but the ones that don't,
Yeah.
you've opened yourself to.
You opened yourself to Airbnbs, which I believe City of Fisher said, no, we don't
Completely.
want Airbnbs there.
Yeah,
We
I'm
want
just saying that
long-term
because
rentals.
I've dealt with that a lot in the past couple of
Yeah.
months with people trying to buy the
Right.
new neighborhoods that are allowing them when they don't omit those. It's kind of like, well, I guess you can.
The market has really pivoted against Airbnbs.
Yes, it has.
And it's
Correct.
been really interesting to witness that. And I kind of get it, kind of don't get it to a certain extent. You know, like I can understand both arguments, I guess. And like I just don't have a care to a certain, I guess. But
I think it really depends on what is around that area.
I just
For
thought-
example, in Fishers, there's a community right behind the event center.
yeah.
And I believe those are 2-story townhomes, and about 40% of those are rentals.
Yeah. Or Grand Park.
Those would
Because that's
be-
all like subdivision
Tho-
area.
Those would be great Airbnb areas if the local city would approve that. You've got Fountain Square down in Indianapolis, which
Great
is a great
Airbnb.
area for Airbnb. But most of Fishers, most of Carmel, out in the residential area, no, probably not so.
Yeah, I agree. It's just really interesting the way that people have reacted to it. Obviously, you don't know what HOA fees are going to be or anything, I would assume, at
We
this
actually
point.
had an independent study
Of what it projected to be?
Projected to be, and we're at $350 for the townhomes and $390 for the condominiums.
That's nice because
which
I'm
is
trying
very
to.
affordable.
I got a condo down on. We've talked
Yeah.
about this. Its HOA fee is $730 a month.
Oh,
Yeah, dude. It's a
we've
lot.
actually
That's the
had-
reason it's still on the market? Is it still on the market, or what'd you do?
Yes, it's still on the market.
That's just because
Yeah.
it's another $730 in your
Right.
mortgage.
Yeah.
We've had people that tell
I
us
know.
there's no
So
way
much.
that's your HOA fees. And we said, okay, we'll have an independent study done. And we didn't
And they
tell them.
verified it,
And
yeah.
they came back. They actually came back with a lower number than our 350.
I'm curious if you've seen. So one of my team members, Bo, his family's got a house down in kind of like Floribama area. You know what I mean?
I'm going there. At the
Really?
end of April. Yeah.
Oh, that's where you're
Yeah,
going
that's
for
where I'm
your
going, Floribama.
for your
Right.
adult spring break that you're
Yeah,
talking
that's it.
about.
Yes.
So like Orange Beach, right? So
where
you got
we're
Gulf
going.
Shore. Okay.
That's so
Yes.
weird.
So he told me a couple years ago when they first started going down there. This is probably like 5-6 years ago. There is a ton of speculation down on Orange Beach where people would come to like your property. They would buy. They'd be first on the list while you're going up. They will own it, right? They'll buy it and everything, and then they just sell it because the resale money's there.
Yeah, it's immediate.
And it's just a way to hold on to this because as you were saying, like prices will go up,
Right.
and so they end up being early investors, even though and they never move into this place, and they just park
Isn't
their
that
money
something?
there.
Wow.
And there's a lot of that because there's been so much development down there. Now, don't get me wrong, that is, I'm trying to think.
They got something we don't.
Yeah, they have
big-
an
big
ocean. They have
pile
a
of
Gulf.
water, right?
I can't think of the word off the top. Anyways, but it's it's a place where people go for vacationing and all this other stuff, right? And so obviously it's a much different community. But I'm just curious if we ever see that kind of stuff up here, because there's people who make a crap ton of money just doing that.
There is, yeah. I think the biggest thing we have going for us, two things, is it's right on the Nickel Plate Trail, which is such a connectivity.
Yeah.
And we had really the demographics. We're seeing a lot of early retirees that want those one-level condo buildings, that want to go walk their dog right on the trail, or they want to take dinner and walk right downtown.
That's what a lot of this is in Carmel too. You know what I mean? It's people who are downsizing, or I mean, I don't want to say downsizing necessarily, because sometimes the price is like double, but what's a better way to put it? Just kind of like low maintenance, low impact living, I guess.
I will say real quickly, talking about that, you want to walk. What I've been really thinking is kind of funny is the marketing that goes on around the downtown area. That it used to be their walkability was, First Avenue, Second Avenue, North, South, East, and West, and that was our walkability. Now, like Gramercy West talks about, it's walkable to downtown. Now I'm thinking, are we going to get past Keystone one day and say it's walkable to downtown? I mean, I lived in New York for a while. You walked everywhere, and you didn't think anything about it, and you could have walked 4 or 5 miles before you knew it, because it was just, so much going on the whole time.
I mean, you could take the Monown from freaking Westfield to downtown Indy.
Right?
I know, but it's funny that how the walkability of downtown Carmel is spreading out, because there's nothing to buy in my opinion, the true walkability. But everybody's starting to really farther and farther
Using
go.
that word very loosely.
You're in the Arts and Design Center. No, you're not.
Well, I always forget about Nickel Plate, right? Because even yesterday I was like on 62nd. And I was like, what is that? I was like, oh, that's Nickel Plate. Like, I just went over it. Because, I can remember taking that to the State Fair.
Right.
Right? Because that's what it used to be. It used to be the train down to the State Fair.
Yeah, that was
Nickel
fun.
Plate.
Yeah. That was part of the State
Fair. So it goes all the way down.
Right.
That was
It
part
does.
of it.
Well,
I was...
where the Nickel Plate Trail will connect into the State Fairgrounds, and it will connect right into the Monon.
Yeah, because the Monon's right there.
Yeah, so
it's like a
you'll have
block
a
west.
triangle from Indianapolis to Carmel to Westfield.
And it's really such an easy bike ride, and it's beautiful, with all that. I'll quickly say, I don't know if you guys remember, but the huge remonstration about the Monon coming into Carmel, being built. Yeah. The horrible reactions people were having, not in my backyard, signs everywhere, and now the price of their houses just went up because it came there. And everybody wants to be in those houses now.
So that's in their property description now.
I don't want to age you.
Right, I'm on the Monon before. Don't put that back there.
I don't want to age you, but I don't remember that at all.
Well, you probably weren't living here during it as well, right?
Yeah,
you weren't living in Carmel. It was just funny to watch everybody so mad about it, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, this is really nice. My house just went up $100,000 because I got a trail in the backyard."
Right. Well, I mean, my wife and I, we almost bought a house on the Monon in like 2005, right? And over by Orchard Park area, quite honestly. And so I wish we would have done it now. But like one of our concerns was like, do we want people like in our backyard?
That's what everybody was saying.
Yeah,
my goodness, there's going to be everybody. They're going to come to my back door and break in. And it was really the scared people.
I remember that.
It was crazy. They
and
just
it
thought
never
it
happens. It never happens.
No, or they can walk onto the Monon from their backyard, which is really cool.
You get incidents, like that you hear about, like I would say, like once every 2 years we hear something weird, right? And even then, like
they could come from the street too, either way.
Well, and that's just because we have weirdos, not because we have the Monon. You know what I mean? Like it has nothing to do with the Monon.
We're at the wrong target.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I don't think the Monon's the problem. I think some of our population is. But so I'm glad you did it the way you did it, because I mean, we've had Mayor Jensen on, and like there's been some issues up in Noblesville over this big, and maybe the builder, like not educated enough on. We haven't had that builder on to actually discuss what their process was like, but they obviously had people who were for, people who were against, and but the people who are against are still against and are like very, very vocal about it, even though it's like being built,
it's
so
too late now.
Yeah, like you're not going to get anywhere with this, but you haven't really had that.
Yeah.
I also think, people are probably like, oh, this is just more going on in Fishers, and in my opinion, from what I've seen in Fishers, because I've lived on the north side for a very long time at this point, I think it's just getting started. Like, I don't think this is the end. I think this is the beginning.
I agree.
Yeah, like I think there's going to be so much more redevelopment in Fishers.
Completely.
And I think this will be, I think Fishers is Carmel in like 7 years. I really do.
Well, this
maybe 10, but you know what I mean.
I've said forever that Carmel has no place else to build, because a lot of people are like, where's some place? I really want a new build. I'm like, it's built out. And like a week ago, I was driving down 146th Street, and Salisbury Brothers is all a new neighborhood. Like, where'd that come from? Again, it was probably started 5 years ago, but I was just driving by and boom, all of it's torn up. And so there is more land. You just don't know where they're going to squeeze it out.
Right.
It was funny.
And they will. And here's the cool thing about Fishers. They have a roadmap to follow from what Carmel did without some of the headaches, without some of the bumps and bruises, and it will be a better process, and quite honestly could potentially be built better. I mean, they have 2 schools instead of 1 school, right? Like 2 high schools. I mean, I love Carmel High School, but it is a small university,
Yes,
right?
it is.
Whereas like Fishers, you have Fishers and HSE, so it's a little bit more manageable. So, and then out by where I live, it's interesting to see like Fishers is expanding out. Like there's a suburb of Fishers basically called Fishers, and you know, I mean, they have annexed part of Fortville out there, like all the stuff that you see over past like Florida Road and Cynthia Ann and all of this stuff like that. When I moved out there, was nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Fields.
nothing. Yeah.
Well, I had never had anybody take me to Fort Bill or McCordsville, any of that, because I've been here since 2008. So 16
World
years.
traveler, you just
I
stay
know.
right
I
here.
just no, I'm not going over there. There's nothing there. Why would I go over there? And
There's
nobody
a
wants
lot
to
over
live there.
there.
Not in 2008. So
Yeah,
when
no,
I
that's what
first
I'm doing.
literally started to sell in Fortville was maybe 3 or 2 years ago, where people were moving out there. And when I finally drove out there, it was still kind of country, but all of a sudden it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, but just to know that after 2020, we really did start to sell a lot of different places we never thought of because of everybody staying home. But I would never.
Fortville's a great community.
Pendleton's another one.
Pendleton,
Fortville's really cool.
They really
Pendleton.
did their downtown sections
Yes.
with Fortville, and I think that really enhanced.
They started
what the
knowing
residents
that.
have.
That's where it's like, build this and they will come.
Yeah.
It's kind of an idea.
It's a little bit. It had a lot of traction. It's died off a little bit, and I think I mean, they redid Broadway going through there. That kind of slowed things down, but it's kind of like a smaller Zionsville to a certain extent, But I mean, like you can walk. There's shops. There's you got Fox Garden there. Right. There's just a lot
of boutique areas.
A lot of
there.
boutique.
Yeah.
It's just really, really nice. There's a lot of old homes that are really well done over there.
That's what I love about Franklin.
I love Franklin.
It's
That's why I
just a
tell
cute
everybody.
little,
I
cute
think
little street, and all the
Right.
houses are so beautiful.
Anderson is going to be Franklin in the next 20 years.
There you go.
I really
Buy
believe
property.
that. Yeah.
Well, why do you?
That's where I own property over there.
We were talking about this earlier, but we were talking about the remonstrators. Every time something's going to be built, there's people against it. Whether they even live in the town, they're mad.
Sure.
So how do you think you got away with 9 votes just like that, no remonstration at all?
Well, I think a year before we decided to start land acquisition is that the town council rezoned that area. So now there was a plan from the city
Like this is happening.
governing body that we're going to develop this corridor. And the tough part was just meeting with these homeowners who were, I am not selling. I've lived here for, name it, 20, 30, 50 years in one case. And that it was truly, beautiful trees there. It had, wildlife, even had deer running through there when I was at some
You're
land
starting to
acquisition.
hit a note on me. What'd you do?
Oh, no. Didn't touch the deer.
Didn't touch the trees?
We
Well,
did
some
touch
of them
the
you
trees.
have to.
Yeah,
I know.
We took the trees.
That's the one thing I think people get mad about is what you
and,
do
and
when
we
you
did,
yeah.
because that was such a but it was really in that it's 2 blocks, 3 blocks from City Hall. That area is going to develop, whether
and how
we
it
do
is,
or
yeah.
someone else does it.
And you came in with something that they
Right.
weren't afraid of.
Right. So I think we did have a few naysayers, but at the end of the day, I think people are like, that corridor just is going to develop.
So I think, as somebody who's dealt with it, remonstrators are okay. They're allowed. You need them because there are bad actors, right, who are going to put up stuff that's not going to be well thought out,
Well
or
said.
it's going to have a negative impact. And so, like, I am not just constantly pro-development. I'm not. Like, it's it's case dependent, right? So I don't want people to think that they can't do that, by no means. But I do know at a certain point, being from Martinsville, and they redid the 69 through there and everything, and I can remember talking to my dad, and I was kind of like progress waits for nobody. Like, at a certain point, this happens, and it's like, how do you just make sure it's done correctly and that people aren't taken advantage of, and there's as little harm done as possible? Because most of these things, like once the ball gets rolling on it, like even if it's not this person, people catch wind of it and they're like, ooh, well, I could do that, but I could do it better. But what if we maybe did? And like, it's just going to end up happening. That's what really happens for the most part, especially when you're talking about the suburbs. Now, if you're talking about out by like what we were talking about with Fishers being out towards Fortville, that stuff can get delayed like a decade, right? Because of that stuff. But if you're in a central area, it's happening.
So our first pitch to the city was an overabundance of apartments.
Yeah.
And that didn't meet approval. And so we had to go back and really talk about, what the need of the community would look like over the next 5-10 years and beyond. And that's where we came up with our current designs. But yeah, so if we would have thrown 300 or 400 apartments in that area,
like right on the heels of the yard and everything, where they just threw a bunch
exactly.
in.
That would have come at a different, there'd been a lot more naysayers to that than what we have now, where we have home ownership.
Yeah.
Right, and which we need.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, but we also need rentals. That's the crazy part.
Well,
we just have a housing shortage in general. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. I want to have you on and do
Appreciate
it more. I want to jump into the stats real quick because they're just kind of interesting, and then I have a hard stop, obviously. But I don't know. It's interesting to kind of hear about it. And, I'm about to talk about inventory, and you're about to provide inventory. So I just think it goes hand in hand.
Well, and it's just people probably drive by there and go, what is going on? And as realtors, we need to know what's going on and coming up. So when clients call you, you're not like red-handed going, I have no clue.
Well, people get preemptively angry when they see something with no knowledge.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
Change. 15 years or 2 years ago, Fishers did a study. A company over in Ohio came over, did an independent study. For the next 15 years, Fishers needs 13,500 new units in the next 15 years. So let's just call it 1,000 homes a year. Mm-hmm. They need new units, whether those are apartments, townhomes, condos, or single family. And that's the benchmark. And so City Walk's going to contribute to that.
Well,
not to 1,000, but to the tune of 200.
So I'm on the Economic Development Board for Hamilton County, and that's one of the conversations is we all talk about, live Indy, or what, they're trying to bring all these corporations in, and the very first question is, can you house my people when they come in?
That's it.
And we're kind of like, kind of.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean,
well,
that's the reality of it.
Like, I don't
Most
know
of
where,
them.
Yeah, we'll work on that. When you get here, we'll work on that. But that's where we lose corporations because they can go someplace who has more affordable housing and more housing available. But that's one thing. I mean, we're trying so hard to get all this, and we're getting it. But then what? Where do the workers go?
Got to build it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. It's all, like I said, it's all really interesting. It's fascinating to me. And I don't know. I'd like to have you back on. So once as you're starting 3, I think it'd be really interesting to update everybody.
Right.
Well, as we sit here and say, well, wonder how fast it's going to go, because you probably are thinking one thing, and it may just go a lot faster than you expect.
never know.
Yeah.
You absolutely never
Yeah.
know.
It'll be fun to we'll predict the future here.
Yeah.
It is. All this stuff up here went around quicker than I thought, especially down there by where the gas station is. Where the Batteries Plus gas station was. And
I
then
know. I
was
love
like,
Batteries Plus.
Like,
I love Batteries Plus.
Like we have a 4-story, complex here all of a sudden.
Batteries.
Yeah.
I know.
Where am I going to buy batteries?
You could always walk in there and get a battery.
Right.
And
So
it
here's
could
the
be
thing.
the weirdest battery. Even for your little kids' cars,
Yeah.
those big, huge cars they drive with 2 of those big red batteries, they had those.
I know.
So all I heard is there's a business plan there because there's room for a Batteries Plus still on the north side. We need one. We just need to find where
They
to
can't
put
afford that one.
it. Yeah. Okay, so when I did the stats for Fishers and Noblesville, obviously I think everything's about to change with spring break here. For us, we have a bunch of listings coming up, and we're kind of a little bit slower on buyers right now, which is interesting. But I see it out there, obviously just on social media, talking to other agents and everything like that. Because all of our buyers were just so hot and ready. A lot of them were like, all right, they ended up under contract, right? Because inventory did start to pick up. In Fishers, I had 30 go on the market, 14 are still active, 16 pended within the week, but 28 pended total, right? So I only picked up 2 in inventory. There's 116 on the market, anywhere from 217 to basically 7 million. There's one in Hamilton proper that has been on the market. It's a beautiful home. I absolutely love that home. It's Hayward. Gordon's old house that he built out there. It's an absolutely beautiful home. But so average days on market though in Fishers is 36, and the median is 3. That is insane. 3. I mean, that's a COVID number that houses are selling
21,
basically
22.
over the weekend.
Yep.
Yep. So
Good
like
line.
new houses are selling really, really quick. And
Not
while
new
you-
build houses, just new houses
new
hitting
to
the
market, new
Yep,
to market,
yep.
right? Which is to be expected with spring inventory picking up and everything like that. And then Noblesville was very similar. I had 31 go on the market, 23 are still active, so 8 pended in a week, but 22 total pended. So I picked up a little bit more inventory there. I have 128 on the market. Average days on market is 26, and the median is 8 now. So it's really weird to hear that because it's like that makes more sense right there because only 8 pended in the week, right? But I have a median of 8 days on market, which means you're going a little bit over a week there. But Fishers was really, really surprising. Like I can't tell you the last time I saw a 3 as the median days on market. I mean, and even then, the worst part about that number is it's actually faster than that because it's usually a house listed on
That's
a
very
Thursday,
true.
it goes live on a Friday, negotiations, over the weekend, and it doesn't pin till Monday, but it probably sold by Saturday afternoon, right? It's probably more
That's
like a
a
day
really
and a half.
good point. If we could call every one of these agents and go, like some of
How
the
quick did
listings
that offer come in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you sold it in the first day, but there's no countering. But yeah, you had to wait. Yeah, that's such a good point because
Even 3's like the lowest it'll ever be because of the weekend,
Yeah.
right? Like that's just the reality of
because
it.
the new way of
Or
listing.
sometimes agents say, well, I'm not going to make a decision until Monday
Right,
morning
yeah.
or Sunday,
Yeah.
but you
So-
got the offer you want.
So they inflate the
Friday
days on
night.
market just by the way they.
3 is
Right.
literally our version of 0.
Yeah,
probably.
it really is, and that's what Carmel. The last 7 days when I started doing this, I was shocked. So 40 houses hit the market in Carmel in this past 7 days. So it's the last week of March. 21 of those 40 pended, but the average days on market for those 21 was 4, and the median was 3. So this was 21 houses worth 0. If we want to look at our numbers the correct way, 21 of these homes sold immediately. And that's saying the pricing was correct, the house was ready to go, and the buyers are out there. So Carmel just shocked me when I saw that. So there's where we are right now for Carmel. If you're trying to sell your house or you have buyers in Carmel, you better look at that house within the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But 122 are currently active. And this what I found interesting for Carmel is there's average of these houses currently active is 95, and the median is 33. So there's a lot of stale property out there, and they really need to look at their pricing or something because if they're at 95, there's some houses out here averaging 95 days on market of these 122 active. That's a scary number because when are they going to finally sell? We've said it a billion times. There's 2 markets, the ones that sell and the ones that don't. And if you're not selling, you need to find out why you weren't the ones that did. And then there's 77 that sold in the past 30 days. List to sale ratio for the past 30 days, 100% average. And 35 average days on market and 5 median. So we're 3 for 7 days and 5 for the 30 days. Wow. We are very quick here in Carmel. So again, I'm just going to say real quick, sellers, your listing agent needs to know how to handle a property that's going to get multiple offers in a very quick timeline and not, be stressed out or anything. There is a plan of how to work with this. Be prepared. You need to be. And also for your buyers need to understand you're not forcing them to buy a house quickly. You're just going to have to tell them that this is the market, and if we look at it, you can't come back tomorrow. And that's Carmel. For Westfield, 28 hit the market. 13 of those pended, but 36 total pended. So we'd lost inventory if you look at the total that pended that time period. So that was an average days. This is what I just did for this. Average of 45 and 17. So that's Westfield. But I took out the big 200 plus days and all that stuff. So if we took out the 6 that were really high days, the average in Westfield was 17 and the median was 15. We always want to say this is including all those new builds, but I did take out the long-term ones. But the new builds are starting to go faster. But that's the fastest I've seen Westfield as well. 189 are currently active. Their average days on market is 67 and median 34. Again, probably a lot of new builds. I didn't break them down. But there's 89 of those 189 that are new builds. So 50% of the market, basically. 134 that have sold in the past 30 days, 98.5% list to sale ratio. Average days on market 52 and median 27. I did not pull out all of those big high numbers, but the list to sale ratio, again, I just want to say 98.5. Don't plan on lowballing that first 2 days, 3 days. It's not going to happen, and you're not going to get the offer if you're competitive. Zionsville, 15 hit the market. 3 of those pended. 12 total pended. Average days on market, 18 and median 15. Zionsville is always kind of just the same. 52 are currently active. 100 days on average and 28 median. So there's, again, 2 markets. 33 sold in the past 30 days with an average list price of 100.5%. And 22 average days on market, 7 median. So the median went up a little bit. That's the stats. So we are in the thick of it right now.
We are.
I think it'll slow down over the next couple of weeks just with spring
It
breaks.
always does,
and
yeah.
then it'll
Whichever
pick back
town
up.
it is, it doesn't matter. It affects everybody.
But we'll see. I mean, we also have the tariffs go into effect tomorrow, right? So we'll see if there's a pullback of the market or if there's no. I think probably most people will be in a wait and see kind of situation. I think anything that would be a negative impact from that would most likely be delayed onset in the first place. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you'll probably see some stock market adjustments or whatever like that, but I don't think it's going to impact the spring market that much personally. But we'll
especially
see.
resales.
But last year it was different. We heated up like this, and then like third week of April, it just was like just fizzled out.
Forever.
If the tariffs do go into effect, your resales may find they get a little bit more market share because we were like, I'm not going to build now,
right?
Because now my build costs went up 10-15%.
So we talked about that last week. Is actually we thought that what everybody projects will happen. Like if you actually understand how it all works, it will probably have the opposite effect most likely, right? Because as we were talking about, we have builders pulling out of things, right? Because costs go up. Right. So now all of a sudden all that's left is the resale market, and now I have twice as much buyers. Well, not probably, maybe 20% more buyers.
More demand.
Yeah, looking at this smaller market, right? Mm-hmm. And so then all of a sudden it just fuels itself to a certain extent. So I know that we were talking about, like, I know we got to hop off here, but like there was a thing that we saw on social media that talked about foreclosure rates going up and everything, and I saw it like probably 20 times in the past week. But if you actually look at that graph, it was multifamily, it wasn't single family residential. And it was talking about FHAs, and we've talked about this before anyways. Like our big problem is our credit card spending right now in America and the interest rates on that. And then obviously, I think that trickles into the housing because we overspend on our day in, day out, and then that trickles away from your ability.
Well, your debt to income really starts to change just because of your credit cards, and then that would be part. I told you guys real quick. I got a letter in my mail that said my interest rate had changed, and I remember back in the day when I was in college and got my first credit card, Discover. I still hold that credit card anyway. It was like 17%, and then it went to 21%. I thought that was crazy. This one changed to 33%.
That's nuts.
You just can't if you just pay the minimum. Oh my, you're going to be
right.
It's just crazy. So I could see how that's really happening. People need to really pay attention to those interest rates and find a lower card. But
the thing I always hear is it's like housing is too expensive. It sounds really bad because I'm an agent, right? But like I just feel like this is me actually not really having a bias on it because like I am in real estate and I know what the numbers really say and what they mean. It is really our spending problem in America that is a problem more than our housing is a problem, right? Like I get it, rates are high, not really, but everybody thinks they are, right? I know that costs have gone up on a house. I understand all of that. It's your other spending that is and like. It's like, so I feel entitled to housing, right? And so it's like, oh, this thing that I'm supposed to get is too expensive, but we'd never want to take a look at like what our discretionary spending is. And so, I mean, that's a much bigger topic and complex and everything like that. But the problem that you really run into is because housing is a necessity, what ends up happening is people, if they do get into a tough crunch, they just downsize. And so it just creates more demand in a different market. That's all it really does. It just shifts the demand, and we still have a housing inventory problem. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So everybody who wants a housing crash, we talked about this like 2 years ago. I don't think people remember what really happened during the housing crashes and how families were decimated and on the street, and their shit was laying in the front yard, and children were impacted.
Literally.
Literally.
Yeah. destroyed.
I remember.
Yeah,
It
so
was
bad.
just.
I don't see that happening.
I don't either. I don't either. But you see
No,
people
because it had to
wanting
be a
it.
very major event, and people are talking about the tariffs are going to cause this because that's a major. It's not a major event, but I'll never forget. But I was new to the market, and I'm like, this is normal. If I had already been in the market for like 5 years, I would have had more in my head of this is just not normal what I am seeing. It was crazy, and I don't ever want to see that again.
No,
I remember. I had one story real quick, and I know you need to go, but this was the horrible one. A little girl came to the door when I was showing it, and she goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "What?" She goes, "My best friend who used to live here, can you go get her doll for her?" And I had to go get her doll.
Man.
Because that's all that little girl knew was they took her home and took her doll. And I mean,
And if you think
it
about
was
that,
horrible
But we
to
saw
watch.
that stuff when you walked into foreclosures. You saw toys and dolls and
Destroyed
clothes.
lives.
It just and you
Because
could
they were
tell-
thrown because it was they're looking for that one thing they have 20 minutes to find. It was horrible. We're not there, people.
Yeah.
well,
It's
and the
not-
part that I struggle with the most about it, I understand the sentiment behind it, but it's just not walked through enough. Like, if you really think about it, like, what you're really saying is, I want something that I can't afford, and I think it's unfair, and I want other people punished so that I can afford it. That's what that really is. Like, agree? I mean, you guys don't have to agree with me. That's just kind of how I see it. It's like, this is too expensive for me, and I really want it. So I want everybody else to, like, I gotcha type shit, or prove a point, or teaching lessons of like, see, I told you it was overpriced. And like, they just don't think about the human aspect of it. So that's me. I'll get off my podium. I'll get back on it next week. But
Another
whatever.
topic, right?
Yeah. Anyways.
Take a break.
I'm Kyle Morris with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker. If you need to get a hold of me, my number is 317-649-5122.
Shelly Walters with the Shelly Walters Realty Group, 317-201-2601. And tell us everything about you, including how they can pull up something online.
I want them to go see this tiny model.
I want to go
dude.
see this model.
The model is fantastic. You do have to come over to see it. So Jeff Cloyd with City Walk, our number is 317-559-3900. We are located over in the Fairway Mortgage building, which we have partnered with Fairway Mortgage.
Okay.
And Fairway Mortgage's building is right downtown Fishers, right at the point of the Nickel Plate Trail and Lantern Road. So across the trail from where City Walk is. And we have the model in their mortgage building, and we have an office in there right now. So that's where I work from. And when we get a model built, which should be done, late summer, early fall, we'll probably transfer the office over there.
All right.
But yeah, definitely there. And then if you want to look us up online, it's citywalkfishers.com.
All right.
Thank
Everybody
you.
have a good week.
Bye.